These online trolls have that power because they have access to an audience that they would never gather by their own merits. And they are saying things that are derisive and inflammatory, and that would absolutely 100% get them punched if they ever said it in public.
Well, Dr. Peterson, now you have one that criticizes you directly to your face. Jordan Peterson. This man needs no introduction. He is like a rock star among the neoconservative circles. You know, the ones that prefer this flag over this flag. You know, the trad cats, the Judeo-Christian value holders, keyword Judeo. You know, the ones that call for the genocide of children in Gaza, the good old conservatives. Yeah, give him hell, brother! Jordan Peterson is a walking oxymoron, or you could say oxymoron! He's the very definition of controlled opposition, unhinged enough to be controversial among the average Joes with a room temperature IQ, but restrained enough to bark the right rhetoric for the right people, aka his employers. He's not all bad though. He can be an entry-level mentor towards a better life and towards the red pill, if you will. He has some good advice for people that are lost, like this, and this. But beyond that, if you truly want to be a based, masculine man that seeks truth, he will help you no further. And it's a shame because I truly agree with, let's say, 80% of everything he says. I mean, I even got his book when I was younger. Wait, why do I still have this? Hold on a moment. Alright, yeah, that should do it. Oh no, you burned the book! You're a Nazi! A Nazi troll! Yeah, I remember when the Germans burned your employer's books on transgenderism, homosexuality, and their CP stash. Yeah, I remember that. Everybody knows what books they burned. But this, what I did now, it's a statement. To disregard all those washed-up fallen heroes and stop listening to their neoliberal, imperialist, Judeo-Christian crony capitalist ideology like Jordan Peterson. Goldberg Peterwitz. This video was taken down by the ADL in collaboration with Daily Wire and Mossad. Also, don't Google the USS Liberty incident. My biggest problem with Jordan Peterson is that he went from this...
So there's a reason I'm defending freedom of speech. And the reason for that is quite straightforward. The reason I'm defending freedom of speech is because that's how people with different opinions settle their opinions in a civil society. And we have to be able to say what we have to say badly, or we won't be able to think at all.
I am not going to be a mouthpiece for language that I detest. And that's that!
To this!
Up yours, woke moralists. We'll see who cancels who.
Oh my god, how cringe! From a guy who stayed far away from politics, who made a brilliant series on the Bible, which I encourage everyone to check out. From a guy who genuinely helped millions of lost young men, to a guy that can't stop talking about the left and the labeling everyone that doesn't agree with him a leftist or a Marxist or an extremist regardless of political beliefs. Over the past years, when he chooses a topic to talk about on his YouTube channel with his guests, he finds a way to drive the conversation back to politics. Woke ideology this, cultural Marxism that. Hell, his political stances aren't even that interesting to begin with. He's just an upholder of the status quo. The current crony capitalist, military industrialist, resource exploitative, neoliberal system that we live in. He's a master at saying a bunch of things, hundreds of pages worth of nothing, repeating himself over and over again, when he could just said, suck it up, stop being a pussy, stop being gay, work on something, stop feeling sorry for yourself, and clean your room. Wait, didn't I burn this? Hold on, I'll do it again. Another major problem with him is that he's spineless. He tries so hard to not offend anyone and be as politically correct as possible, but he fails nonetheless because the world we live in is filled to the brim with sensitive pussies. That is not worth your energy. Try to not offend anyone. Might as well say what you want to say. Jordan Peterson is protected by his powerful employers anyway, so why even bother? Oh, I know, to keep appearances, of course, to fool the world that he is not controlled opposition, but a true and genuine free thinker. Jordan Peterson hasn't had an original thought for almost a decade at this point, or since he joined the Daily Wire, and you know, that is very sad to see. Another major problem is that he fully embraces the very flawed and broken system of free market capitalism. He believes that this is the be-all, end-all economic system and fully demonizes communism or any other system. Don't get me wrong, communism is shit. But ignoring the very apparent problems of capitalism shows the deep dishonesty that Dr. Peterson has. He ignores problems such as the illusion of choice in the market, overproduction which leads to waste and chemical waste, corporate monopolies that dictate the markets, corporate greed, corporate corruption, monopolies on basic utilities like social media, news networks, monopolies on telecommunication, corporate political corruption, aka lobbying, monopolies on delivery services, poor quality of goods, low quality of food, and the huge problem of capitalism that I hate with every fiber of my being is consumerism. But Dr. Peterson is blind to those issues. He has a very selective bias towards everything he preaches, and either Peterson is not that intelligent or knowledgeable on certain things, or he deliberately ignores those facts, which I'm afraid it's even worse, because this highlights his intellectual dishonesty, or dare I say, hypocrisy. He often fails to address the real problems like corruption, money laundering, bankers, the real cabal. He dances around such trivial matters like political correctness, LGBT propaganda, that he fails to see that those are just symptoms of a bigger disease. He will never be honest about who is in charge, and other young impressionable kids will fall for the false dichotomy of left versus right, Democrat versus Republican, liberal versus conservative. And he makes his followers and also his haters adhere to one of the two sides, dividing people, making them choose between one or the other side of the fence. He has a cult of impressionable people, but not just young impressionable boys like the cult of Andrew Tate, a guy who he vehemently criticizes. I also made a video about him, check it out. There are countless instances where beloved Dr. Peterson made terrible gaffes in debates with guys such as Slavoj Žižek and Matt Dillahunty, two self-proclaimed atheists. Cringe. One of them a self-proclaimed communist. Ultra cringe. Is this your king? A guy that is addicted to benzodiazepines, that went through a clinically induced coma because he couldn't cope with the withdrawals? Now, I understand that he took them to help him with his anxiety and depression in the midst of his wife being diagnosed with cancer. But fortunately, she made a full recovery and she's fine now, cancer-free. Oh, and don't get me started on his daughter. A single mother that poses like this on social media and hangs out with Andrew Tate, a guy Jordan Peterson despises. And she says that...
And Andrew Tate invited me to come see his house and talk business. And he flew me over there for a day. I was there for a day. He was talking about starting a paywall, trying to figure out how to monetize content. And then I flew home. And so we took a couple of photos. One's in the cigar lounge. But just because I flew over there and talked to him doesn't mean there was anything sexual that occurred, which is what happened when the internet saw that photo.
Yeah, right. They all say that. A girl promoting such extreme unhealthy diets like full-on carnivore diet. Don't get me wrong, veganism is shit. But eating only meat, it's not only unhealthy in the long run, it's very idiotic. A guy who hasn't got his own house in order lectures millions on how to have their house in order. What a huge irony. Jordan Peterson doesn't represent traditional values, doesn't represent Christianity, doesn't represent a strong masculine role model. He's just another talkhead for the status quo, like his employer Ben Scheckelberg, whom like him calls for the genocide of the people of Gaza. But fortunately, his fans and most of his followers have caught up with this ever since his infamous interview with the war criminal-in-chief Bibi Netanyahu. An interview which even his most on-the-fence fans have noticed how compliant and how passive he was the whole interview. Just look at the comments. I bet he deleted those comments long ago by now. People have caught on much earlier the cracks in his narrative and his character, and which masters he actually serves. But the infamous tweet on October the 7th, 2023 was the final nail in the coffin. That moment in time marked the end of Jordan Peterson's credibility and what little ounce of respect I had for the guy. That moment in time was the turning point in his career when he became 100% irrelevant. It was the moment he lost half of his followers and virtually all his Muslim followers. I've been disillusioned with the controlled right wing for many years at this point, that they are basically controlled opposition. And how Dr. Peterson and many like him restrict themselves so much and are devoid of any honesty or originality. They hold their ideology and their failed system in such a high esteem that it has replaced God in their worldview. Their God is the neoconservative Judeo-Christian crony capitalist system, which is an aberration and an abomination of a system. Him and people like him are ideologically compromised and corrupted beyond redemption. When you call for the genocide of innocent people, women and children that live in the most inhumane conditions possible in an open-air prison, you know that you are corrupt to the bone. But you see, Dr. Peterson wasn't always like this. Thing is, Jordan Peterson at first was an honest man, trying to help young men with loneliness, with their anxiety, with depression, and all the predicaments they found themselves in. Again, don't get me wrong, in the past, Dr. Peterson helped millions of young men, but unfortunately, he became corrupted following his newfound fame and since he joined Daily Wire. That became more obvious than ever. I think this is a warning. A warning to never adhere to one ideology and to disregard how flawed that ideology is. To keep your dignity, to be true to yourself, and to never sell your soul to people that want to control the narrative. To never sing their songs about their failed and outdated political, economical, and cultural ideologies. Stay true to the eternal things that don't change because the guys in charge change, or our society changes, or the times change. Things that will never be outdated, no matter what people say or what the current trends might say. Things that are eternal, like family, tradition, and God. Don't be like Jordan Peterson. Don't give in to the temptation of corruption, and always stay true to yourself.